welcome to an F1 Failcast podcast with myself, Mr. Balkenberg, and alongside me, as always, kicking it for take two for F1 2019, the game itself, Mr. Definitely Zero. How you doing, my taco friend?
Greetings, comrades and amigos. I've had such a rough week. I'm so tired you wouldn't believe. I just wanted to sleep all day. I was saying before we went live that I've been told to give up Red Bull on medical grounds, temporarily at least, and it's kicking my ass. It really is. I can't think. However, today's beverage in that regard then is a nice organic cherry juice. Let's have a taste.
Cherry?
It tastes like it's good for you.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know. It tastes like it's good for me.
Well, I shall crack open my Record League mango and raspberry cider, because I've never had one before. So I thought
you bastard.
I'd stay clear. Sorry. Well, we seem to have this thing in this game that whoever's the drunkest seems to win. So
that is true.
I thought this would go well. And I've had all the other flavours, and I've not had this one. Tastes like fruit juice. Cool.
Nice. So it gets you drunk slowly and in a misleading manner, like an over-friendly uncle.
Like what paedophiles do to kiddies.
Exactly. Oh, what a cheery thought. So here we are restarting the 2019 season playthrough, hopefully,
yes.
If Codemasters have patched the game sufficiently. We will dive right in then and get into some F1 news and opinion. First things first, though, thank you to everyone who hung around for the return of Grand Prix World. I'm hoping to see a few of you in today, all things going well. If anyone is watching on Twitch and hasn't seen it yet, if you head over to my YouTube channel, Definitely Zero is the name again, I am replaying Grand Prix World as Tyrrell, and a concurrent playthrough as Sauber, because why not?
Good old Ken Tyrrell will be happy in his world. I've pressed the button. It still says that you're AI. Hello, Manna. Thanks for joining, mate. Hope you're well and having a good day.
I'm joining the session now.
Grandiose. Now I spy you. This is.
There we go.
I'm less sweaty and worried on my general moobage now.
Excellent. I'd hate for you to be uncomfortable. So. Again, I'm not seeing the AI here, but it should add them in because I've set 20 competitors.
Okay.
So let's see, because I couldn't see any other setting to add them in. It just seemed to be the way it was.
It works for me.
Let's start the event.
Oh, there you go. I saw them all join in as we were leaving.
Excellent.
Great. Phew.
Well then, quite a lot to get our teeth into this week. Unfortunately, because I was in Montenegro, I haven't seen the last two Grand Prix. It's on my list for this week. We will talk about them because I know vaguely what was happening.
You've got corkers to enjoy. Corkers.
That makes me happy. I did hear, like, the general consensus was, the British Grand Prix was the best one ever, and then it was the German Grand Prix was the best one ever, and I do find myself quite encouraged by the uptick in form of Honda, which we will definitely be talking about in this Grand Prix. Feeling a bit sorry for Danny Rick, though.
Yeah.
However, I want to start, if I may, with a feel-good story. Not that we get many of those in F1 these days.
Who are we feeling?
Now, normally we don't cover this kind of thing, often because it's like a shameless publicity stunt or whatever, but I was perusing the internet, as I do, looking for deals on home insurance and amateur pornography, and amongst all that,
do they come as a package?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you can always get a mortgage when you're looking for porn.
They fuck you dry.
Exactly. Yeah, they both drain you, just in different ways. Anyway, I saw a great story about a little boy called Logan, who's apparently a huge Lando Norris fan.
Oh, right.
And he built himself, he's only about 3 or 4, I think, he built himself a McLaren car out of cardboard boxes. And his parents uploaded a picture to Twitter, basically. I don't recall if they acted it directly at McLaren or not. Regardless, Lando and McLaren invited him to the McLaren Technology Centre, and when he got there, they had built him a McLaren MCL 34 out of cardboard boxes, complete with sponsor stickers and paint and all that kind of stuff. And he got to spend some time with Lando, and I thought that was really nice. And it's one of those. It's just another sign that I'm really growing to like Lando Norris very much. Yes. He seems a very personable, down-to-earth kind of guy, and I think the sport was missing that in recent years since Mark Webber went and Jenson Button, and we only really had Daniel Ricciardo left, but he's had a bit of frustration the last few years and wasn't quite his cheerful self on all occasions. Charles Leclerc has a bit of that as well, but yeah, good on you, Lando and McLaren. I guess you've got time to do that when your car actually works in real life.
Yeah, that is true. Oh, this is an escape road I've not been down. I
thought you'd been down them all in your lifelong career.
Just reminiscing. Yeah, because the other thing I'd say, if you like a good giggle, is generally Lando Norris's Instagram account and anything that involves Carlos Sainz's account, because he just seems to steal Carlos's phone at every occasion and then just puts random shit on it all the time, and I find it really quite funny. And then it spreads onto Twitter, and it's just like things like I'm so much slower than Lando, lol, 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 and things like that. It's just stupid feet humour, but it makes me laugh. And
I do like that the two of them seem to get on, which I think is probably helping the atmosphere in McLaren.
Yes. Oh God, what? Yeah.
Did you see the one he posted the other week, actually? And we're sorry in advance for getting onto social media, everyone. I know it's a depressing topic. Where it was a GIF of the two of them playing video games or whatever, and Carlos pushes him and he falls out of his chair, and he tweeted it at McLaren with "Have you been injured in the workplace?" Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
Oh dear. Now if only Rich Energy could hire Lando's social media guru. And
yeah, I know. What I didn't know as well is that Lando Norris is apparently a Twitch streamer, and he streams to Twitch himself.
Because his YouTube, he puts it back onto YouTube afterwards, and it's just under the channel Lando. And he recently was part of a 24-hour sim race, so he was live streaming that on there.
Oh, good lad. And since we're on the topic of McLaren, what a turnaround for those boys the last few Grand Prix, eh?
Doesn't it make you happy on the inside?
It does. It warms the cockles of my heart, particularly to see Carlos Sainz getting the acknowledgement I think he's long been denied.
Yes. We've been long-term suffering Sainz fans here, haven't we?
We have. I mean, I've really liked Sainz. I just ballsed up that lap. I was up, and then I totally fucked two corners, and I'm now 2/10 down. What's weird, the patch has fixed some things apparently, but it hasn't fixed George Russell, who is in 9th. Anyway, back onto topic. I'm going to pit in and change for fresh tyres, because I'm not happy with my lap time thus far. Yeah, what I want to talk about though, obviously Sainz has had a fistful of 5th places, which has been really good for the team. Norris has had more mixed fortunes, but he's also having a hell of a first season, I think.
Absolutely.
Very self-critical. He doesn't sort of rest on his laurels. He doesn't kind of... I've not seen him yet take a compliment for his performances. He always seems to be criticising himself, but I think that could be the characteristic that takes him places.
Mm-hmm. I think he just needs to make sure that he doesn't Lewis Hamilton it too much, in that you can have a perfect race weekend and then you'll still be like, yeah, but my hair was horrible, and just like go off on a tangent, and accept when things go really, really well and take it on the chin, because otherwise, like, absolutely, I get what you're saying, like there's a whole thing around you're always on the crest for self-improvement, so on and so on, but sometimes you just need to be happy of a good result and be like, that was good today, just eat for me, please.
I am massively off your pace, and I can't work out why.
Ooh, I do have a custom setup for this one that I've worked on, so that might be why. But that was a very
me
good
too,
lap.
but mine's crap. So I guess yours is not crap.
Mine is tyre shredding though, so I sacrifice longevity.
I may very well be the Brendan Hartley in this situation.
Oh, off to Formula E with you then, judging by the latest news of last. Was that yesterday that got announced?
Yeah, I mean, I would said all along I would love him to be in Formula E. It kind of feels like he didn't get a totally fair crack of the whip in Formula One, but he did arrive too late. He did. There's not really much of a way around that. And he got a shot for a year. It didn't work out. I don't think he's been too harmed by it. No. This is actually a question I'd love to put to real F1 drivers. I was watching some of the 1990 F1 season, and there was a guy called Oliver Gavin, or Owen Gavin, I forget. But basically, he was just shy of a super license, and so didn't get to drive for, I believe it was LaRousse. Mm-hmm. And he's gone on to America since then, driving sports cars. Seems to have had a fairly decent career. Certainly, he's lasted long. He's still in the game now. And it just occurred to me at that moment, like, I wonder if I could have a conversation with him. I'd actually ask him, like, did being an F1 reject of sorts actually damage your career? Because it seems like he's sort of done okay. I mean, Stoffel-Dawn also landed on his feet. People like the old Midland driver was Thiago Monteiro. Yeah, he did all right for himself. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing to think about, but it just seems to me that I think F1 fans are particularly harsh when judging drivers inside the sport, but motorsport as a whole probably would recognise how difficult F1 is and maybe give drivers a bit more slack. I don't know what you think.
I think also over the years, with the prominence of media in general and the multiple channels that you can get to kind of get round stuff, there's more of an audience for a much more wider berth of series, so you can go for the ultimate route, which Formula One quote unquote could be, but you've got your big fans that love your touring cars, so they would argue that, I'll be pulling a name out of the hat, Gabriele Tarquini, long F1 career at the back of the grid teams, never done anything, still winning championships in touring car now, and he's in his 50s. So you'd kind of go, right, well, he's now got like his own little crowd and audience. Oliver Gavin's an interesting example, actually, because, and this is a random fact that's just popped into my head, when Jean-Denis Delatraz drove for Pacific in 1995, and they found out that he didn't pay any money, they got Bertrand Gachot back in the car for one race, whilst they were trying to get another super licence for Oliver Gavin to drive for the last two races of the 95 season. Random fact.
Yeah, there we go. I'm impressed that you know that from memory, but then again, you are a lover of Pacific.
Yes, all 90s shitty teams. But so he was around, and I think he'd done some test work. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I think in the 90s maybe there wasn't so much of a television and media aspect of being able to do all of these different series and getting big names for itself. But now, Formula One, while still being the pinnacle, is the pinnacle of one tree, and you have all of these other trees that you can kind of sidestep into. And so long as you prove yourself competent in one area, in general, like the basic principle of you're fast in a car can transfer across. It's just the nuances that need to be worked out.
This is top level chat. It's like we haven't skipped a beat.
Wait till one of us is in the wall.
Yeah. I could have gone even faster on my last lap, but my battery was empty.
Aww.
But I'm currently ahead of Leclerc, so that things could be worse. Just behind Gasly, who's someone else we'll be talking about at some point.
We need a Gasly section, I think.
Yeah. Well, they won't be getting one at any of the circuits. Ah! I'm sorry, Pierre, if ever you listen. Not that you would, but,
Long. another streamer, I believe.
Is he? Oh God, I wouldn't watch that.
No. Well, I know Verstappen does, but yeah, I don't know quite what he would do.
Well, he wouldn't be driving. Oh! Sorry, I'm just on a roll with Pierre Gasly. It's like the old Romain Grosjean thing. It's just too easy to get the digs in, you know. They write themselves a little bit.
Tour de France size.
Speaking of which, I want to get into all the driver situations and whatnot up and down the grid. But since we were talking about Lando Norris and we were talking about McLaren, I'd like to sidestep over to Williams, if I might.
Yes.
Because bit of a breakthrough.
Yes.
Bit of a breakthrough for those boys. Now, they don't know if it's a permanent unlock, as it were. However, very, very encouraging. Agreed. I thought George Russell's qualifying was sensational. I did see his quali lap. And the fact that he managed to hold on to the place, I think it speaks volumes. I also saw an onboard from Germany, I think, of him overtaking cars on the first lap. Am I right in thinking it was Germany?
Both. Germany and Hungary.
Yeah. So he seems to be coming out of quite a rough start of the season, looking quite good, quite rosy. I know he's not in the running for the Mercedes drive. Toto Wolff has ruled him out at this stage, which seems a little short-sighted, but, you know, whatever. But to be in that Williams and come out with some positive press coverage at any point in the season, I think deserves a little golf clap. Well done to you, George.
Hungary is particularly... I mean... I'd be really, really angry at the fact that it all went a little bit wrong in the last couple of moments in Germany. So Robert Kubica got the point. I'd be so angry with that. It reminds me of Stewart in '99 when Herbert got the win instead of Barrichello, despite him being like at the back of the field all year and then being like turning up for the one race, and there's like, fuck it, we've got to keep him for next year now. It's a bit like that, but. Got to be there for the opportunities, I guess. But in Hungary, again, over a second clear of Robert in qualifying. They was able to hold it on for most of the race. The second half of the race, the car, I think, just kind of dials out. So, and a lot of their updates seems to be quite fragile and it falls off, which is not great. And essentially, so the further it goes through the race, the more damaged it becomes, the less effective it becomes. So then they get slower and slower. So that's why by the end of the race, I think they'd already dropped to about like half a minute, 50 seconds off the back of everyone else again. But for the first half of the race, they're able to keep people behind, which is good. I'd be interested to see how they get on, less at Spa, but Monza. Monza was the place where Sorokin and Stroll got points last year for Williams. So if they're still doing... I know they've kind of moved away a bit from that slippery concept, but I wonder if the Merc engine will push them through and get them in there maybe, and a few little late breaks could help them out.
One could only hope. I mean, I'm just happy to see Williams on the points board. I too was a bit annoyed to see it was Kubica who got that point, but you know, just having points on the board is already a big deal for them because to be honest, they needed some kind of boost, and I'm sure they're not going to take their foot off the pedal at this point. I'm just glad that they were able to pull some good news out of somewhere. You know, additionally, I'm pleased to see that they're still able to put together a sponsor portfolio. I think Rocket have been a bit of a coup for them, to be honest, because they seem very positive on the team, which I think you kind of need. And the fact that they've committed to multi-year deals means that the immediate risk of being at the back of the grid and running out of money is not quite so severe because, they're not getting money from the FIA, but I believe the Rocket deal is quite lucrative for them. Plus, of course, Robert Kubica's money from Orlen. I'm going to make a prediction now, though, because for the first half of the season, Williams have been very reluctant to even hint that they might get rid of Robert Kubica. And I put that down to the fact that his fans are all completely mental.
Yes.
And they don't want Grove to be firebombed. But I'm going to put it out there now that I think now that they've got this deal in place with Lockheed for the next 3 years, and the fact that they're able to, the car's starting to move in the right direction. Mm-hmm. It's no longer a 100% certain guarantee that they're going to be at the back every race, as proven. I think more and more they'll be talking about change in sort of hinting in small ways, and then they'll stick Latifi in.
Well, just think of how much money Latifi brings as well. So it would almost be a swapping like for like him. I think the thing they've got to watch with Latifi, which is what they had with Stroll, is that it's Daddy wants to buy bits, and it's just how much did they want to put shares in, or do they want to keep Williams as a completely separate entity doing its own business, floating on the stock exchange, that kind of stuff. So it's just making sure that they keep control of everything, because what I would hate for them to do is to let Nicholas Latifi, who's fine, I don't think he's gonna be a record breaker, but he would be competent. I don't want him to basically buy up a team and have Stroll 2.
No, Stroll 2 Electric Boogaloo is not something anybody wants.
No.
I mean, that's the other thing to bear in mind, I suppose, that when you take a driver who's there purely for his money, you are making an offset. I just know for a fact that I don't think their reputation would recover were they to drop George Russell.
No.
Because they already took a beating in reputationary terms for giving Stroll as much leeway as they did. Although I think Stroll has proven that he's got enough to be on the grid. I don't think he'll ever be a champion, but he's got enough to be on the grid, and he can pull out an occasional sensation drive. Which
I'm quite, having seen Stroll in his junior formula, or formulae rather. He can race and he can do quite well. His issue is that he doesn't seem to be able to qualify worth a damn. So if he can sort that out and then maybe grow some personality, then he would be quite competent. But I guess it would be almost like a popping a Deniz in and going off you go for championships. We all love him to bits, but we know he won't be champion.
Exactly. I mean, I think the advice I would give him is dial down the eyebrows, dial up the personality.
Yeah, those eyebrows can't
just give him a trim. Just give him a little trim. However, regarding Williams, say you were Claire Williams, you've got a fetching bob haircut. What are you going to do at this point? Because this segues quite nicely into the Mercedes discussion as well, because obviously Esteban Ocon is up against Valtteri Bottas for the seat next year, and there's rumours that Bottas could return to Williams, but equally the rumours are saying that Ocon to Williams is not an option because of the George Russell, Nicholas Latifi setup, which seems odd. Why would Bottas get in, but he wouldn't?
Because it undermines the Mercedes driver program, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. But so you've got to pick Latifi, Kubica, Russell, Bottas. Let's presume Bottas. Or somebody else. Where do you go? Given where the team is and where you might think it would go, where would you go?
I would absolutely keep hold of George Russell, because that's a Brit in a British car who is speedy and ties to Mercedes. I could try and work some kind of engine deal to try and get a discount if poss, by cultivating their driver for future World Championshipness, even if that means I'm going to give them up later on. I would then... I would probably look at who is the best developmental driver, maybe. And it depends. If finances are secure, then I would go for development and speed. if it was anything else, then I would probably go for money, and I would probably go Latifi, actually. Out of anything else, I wouldn't want Bottas back. I think there seems to be a strong rumour that Bottas might end up at Haas.
Yeah, I keep hearing that as well, which seems odd.
I wouldn't have put it together, to be honest. But I suppose if he's cool, they're looking at a cool Finn to try and cool down whatever the hell Chipotle that is going on.
Yeah. So it'll be an all Scandinavian lineup for them then.
Yeah. We can do Norse mythology down at turn 1. Why is every driver in this bit of the circuit? Fuck off.
You tell them, mate. Actually, yeah, I can see them up ahead. I'm going to run into a shitload of traffic. I'm going to slow down. Is that you behind me?
No, it's not. No, I'm just going to start finish straight, but I've got Norris sniffing around my anus. This is going to be a drama. Yeah, that was a snack.
Let's see if I can... Oh, straight into fucking traffic. Also, I figured out why I'm so slow.
Oh, right. Mix one.
I've repeated the same mistake as in the last episode, where I've loaded the car with 21 laps of fuel. So my car is super heavy. I will have to tweak that. I don't know how I managed to do it, but I did, and it's fucking stupid.
So proud.
To be honest, I would take Bottas back to Williams. I think Bottas-Russell partnership could actually be quite good. It's someone who's familiar with the team, someone who's got knowledge of what Mercedes have been doing, who could maybe help take the car in the right direction. He doesn't bring in much money, but I don't know. I'm kind of sad, I think, to see Bottas go from Mercedes, if that's what happens, because I don't think he's achieved what his potential suggested he would. I don't think he's achieved what he should have achieved, but I think he's done enough.
I don't know. My problem is that I don't know if anyone else would have done much more.
No.
But I still feel underwhelmed at all times, and I think that probably just goes to show the dominance of Spamilton, and understanding just how much. I don't care how it says from the outside looking in, it still screams that's his team, and I think anyone that comes in would struggle with that. I guess the one thing that would be quite interesting is that if Hamilton doesn't want to stay beyond 2021,
which is what the rumour is.
Yeah. If that is the case, then Bottas would be worthwhile staying there to give continuity for when Ocon comes in to replace. Or if Russell does has a more competitive Williams and shows his pace in 2020 there, he would come in instead. Either way, Ocon's, again, his destiny relies on everyone else rather than himself. I don't know. It's such a weird little circle, and it's just systematic of a 10-team 20-car grid, where I guess this feels even more at jeopardy than normal. That it's weird that a top line driver, I think, will end up more not on the grid than being on the grid but further down the field. If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot of room at the midfield teams.
No.
Because there's not many midfield teams anymore.
No.
But here's what's sticking in my craw a little bit, is that all of it could be upended anyway, because I don't know if you've been hearing this, but I've been hearing plenty of rumours that Ferrari are going to announce a big signing, and the rumour is that they've swooped in for Hamilton.
What?
From a few sources now, I've seen rumours of Hamilton to Ferrari to replace a retiring Vettel. Let me see if I can find...
Well, that would be juicy. Wouldn't it be absolutely interesting? There's something in me that would quite love that, because Alonso couldn't get there. Admittedly, some of it was a bit out of luck than judgment in the earlier years of Ferrari, less so later on. Vettel hasn't been able to keep his head together to do it. What if Hamilton then walked in and it all clicked? And then you'd be like, and how does that then make us think of what happened with Alonso and Vettel and how we view their championships? That'd be really fascinating.
Yeah. So there's stories from like The Express and Formula1.de and The Sun and quite a few places where he's been warned by Jenson Button that moving to Ferrari would be the end of his career. There's also stories saying that Valtteri Bottas has dropped a hint that he's available for Ferrari, but hope springs eternal.
They just want to Finn again.
Yeah, the other thing is that it's not just the warnings. It's I don't know. It's just been pervasive, at least in German media. Like if you Google Hamilton to Ferrari here in Germany, all the stories are suggesting that he's moving there in 2020. Like it's a hush hush behind closed doors deal, and that apparently also Max Verstappen was talking to Ferrari, but his standing in the points going into the mid-season means that he can't trigger the performance clause of his contract.
Right, okay.
Because he's third in the championship now, which I don't think anyone would have predicted.
No.
At the start.
Essentially an outsider now for said championship.
Yeah, pretty much. Right.
Crazy.
How much fuel am I taking on? Let's try that. How much time have we got left on the old clock?
5.5.
I will wait a little longer for the track to rubber in a bit further because I'm currently last. But that's because I'm the only medium runner and I was running with a very full fuel tank. I've lightened things up a little, although the weather looks like it might be changing.
I should have looked at the weather for the race. Good, now we're okay.
No, it's just cloudy. All right.
Chance of meatballs?
I'm going to go out while there's a contract.
No, that would be interesting. I'd find that interesting.
I don't see it myself. I just don't think it makes any logical sense. Like, why would he leave? I think he'll do what we've always said he will do, which is stay at Mercedes until 2021 and then retire as having equalled Schumacher.
Yeah.
Or maybe he'll retire 2022 and he'll try and beat Schumacher's record and retire as the all-time all-time greatest.
That's where my money is, because I think for all of this, I think it'd be the same for everyone really. That for all the screaming of records don't matter to me, it does.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, if he equals Schumacher or beats him, then you've got to say fair play. I think. I mean, I've never been his biggest fan. I've always respected his driving. He's never dinged my bell, to be honest. Still, there's plenty going on in terms of shaking up the driver market, because the other rumours, of course, are that Nico Hülkenberg will be out at Renault.
Yes, but that's also interesting because I've also heard that Daniel Ricciardo back to Red Bull in a straight swap with Gasly. So then, what would that do for Renault? Renault would like a Frenchie. Ricciardo is going get me the hell out of here, apparently. Which I could kind of understand from Ricciardo's point of view, but Gasly has been so underwhelming. I don't know why you would. Gasly's at risk of this being such an Ivan Capelli season that he will have nowhere for 2020 at this rate.
Yeah, and after Red Bull promised him pre-season that wouldn't happen. But of course, a promise from Red Bull means literally nothing.
No, and he's. They've said that he'll definitely see out the season, but when Max was busy battling for the win in Hungary and he lapped Gasly, Christian Horner then said that Gasly is now actually hurting us because they have the car that potentially could actually, if two cars were scoring, Ferrari seem to be trying their best to self-harm, it means that there's second in the constructors begging, potentially. So with Gasly not scoring, that kind of eliminates them out of that run. And so for me, whilst I can understand maybe why Hulkenberg would be under pressure, because now that Ricciardo's up to speed, Hulkenberg's a smidgy behind, but him crashing out in Hockenheim, I think, sends alarm bells to Renault. For that's probably about the third podium for that team he's thrown in the bin. And is it now like the curse of never being able to deliver? It reminds me of Mika Hakkinen. Couldn't win until he won, and then he couldn't stop.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, the thing is, I was so stoked when Hulkenberg signed for Renault, and I don't know, he's just a driver who I think could be amazing, but he just always seems to find a way to fuck it up. I don't know how.
But it's always in those key situations, and I think that's why I'm a fan of Perez in some ways, is because if there's a cheeky opportunity going, usually a Perez, even a Stroll, would be the kind of person that's wily enough to pick up those places. And you'd think with 10 years worth practically of experience now in F1 for Hulkenberg, he should be in that category to pick it up. Instead, I assume that if he's in a good situation, he will throw it away. And I just rely on him to be the solid, I'll come home 7th plus, because that's what he does. So I could see him being of absolute beautiful asset to someone at the back of the grid, or mid to back of the grid, almost becoming like the 2010s Frentzen, because as soon as there's the pressure of the top end job in F1, he didn't quite perform it until he was back being the underdog again and able to pull those things off in like 99 Jordan and so on.
Completely agree. Could not agree more. But of course, the silly season carousel doesn't even end there, because also I've heard Perez to Haas rumours.
Yes.
Which to me makes a lot more sense than Bottas to Haas.
Would shore up that Haas team, considering we don't really know quite what its sponsorships are. That was a cracking lap from you.
Did I just get pole by accident?
By 7 tenths over. I mean, Q2, yeah, but that's looking gorge.
Where the fucking hell did that come from? This happened in Monaco. Do you remember Monaco last season where I was trying to be last? And then I ended up on pole. I even failed to fail.
Failcast reaches that height.
For anyone who's curious, we are actually playing on a higher difficulty than last year, in a worse car, and we're doing a lot better, and I can't figure out why.
I'm sure there's a step change in, like, this game is relatively similar. It's a bit more boaty compared to last year, but I think because the handling model's kind of chilled itself out, I think we've got used to it. Plus, I also think that the AI is more consistent over a race period, but I think they've calmed down some of its qualifying over pace, because I would always be shit in qualifying and much more competitive in the race, and now I'm a bit more balanced.
That's good. I think it's the one thing the AI needed actually was to be a bit more
chill,
a bit better managed.
Yeah.
So who's made it through with us? Lando Norris, Vettel, Gasly weirdly, Perez, Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, and then you and me. All right, well, I'm going to switch to TV camera for a little bit, go on board with Norris, and we can have a wee chatteroo, because I'm actually enjoying this driver discussion. Because to me, Perez to Haas actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And the news here is saying...
replacing Grosjean, surely, yeah?
Yeah, replacing Grosjean, although... Gunter Steiner has played down speculation Haas will have a change of driver, with Roman Grosjean speculated to be replaced by Nico Hülkenberg, Sergio Perez, or Robert Kubica.
What?
Yeah, no. Gunter, no. I mean, I already lost faith in Gunter after he kept Roman Grosjean 2 seasons longer than he should have done.
Can you wait for the Netflix puns, though, that would come out of his mouth if they signed him? Maybe if we'd signed the driver with 2 fucking arms, maybe we wouldn't be in this position.
Yeah, actually, all right, sign him just for that. That's the contractual clause. You have to constantly make jokes about Kubica having only 1 arm, and then take it from there.
Oh, please no. Please no.
Yeah.
He can't be bringing that much money in, surely.
No, I mean, I don't know if it's because they want the fan support or what. I mean, Haas is in a very weird position right now. Because they seem to be doing quite well, and then it started last year to go a bit off the boil, and now it's like it's frozen. Let's be honest. And then there's been all this embarrassment around the Rich Energy deal, which we covered in the last episode, which weirdly enough, the madness on Twitter seems to have stopped, and the new owners or the previous owners, but the ones that were sane, seem to be back in charge of the Twitter account. And things are carrying on as if none of this ever happened. Like, the Rich branding is all over, is all over the cars and the teamwear, and no one's saying anything about it. Apparently, though, I mean, the legal letter that was released showed that Haas accepted the termination. They just wanted to be paid. So, I mean, what the fucking hell is going on there? It's crazy. And then they've got this situation with drivers. They've got one who occasionally does fantastically well, but also seems to be maybe a tad too aggressive. And then they have another one that can't help but bin it. He's like magnetically, perhaps even sexually attracted to walls and to failures and to spinning in the pit lane. And I mean, they've kept him. Oh no!
I knew it was going to happen as soon as I done it.
You do at that corner, don't you? You can feel it beforehand, and you already, by the time you realise it, it's already too late.
10th on the grid for more.
Oh,
it's alright, that'll be a burn through.
Yeah, that should at least provide some entertainment from your side. And then there's all the rumours around what's going on with Antonio Giovinazzi at Alfa Romeo, because one rumour is that he's out, the other rumour is that he's done enough to stay in now. I mean, they seem very happy with Kimi Räikkönen, which I didn't foresee happening, to be honest. I actually thought things
he's been a
might
revelation.
not go so well. Yeah, he has, hasn't he?
Which sounds so weird to say that about someone that's been around for 300 Grand Prix and like 2 decades, but I genuinely thought he'd just be tootling around picking up the pieces of bits and bobs. But to see the hunger and to see him released, I think, from the pressure cooker that is Ferrari's way of life, I think has been really, really refreshing. And I almost feel like I wished it could have happened sooner.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, when a driver gets to the top level, there's sort of an expectation that they'll stay in the top 2-3 teams, even if that might not be the best place for them. And again, Frenzen's another great example of that. Yep. Like, he could bring out really exciting drives, he just couldn't do it in a big team. And I don't know, when he left Lotus to go to Ferrari, you and I said at the time that it's going to kill Kimi Räikkönen's hunger and pace, because Ferrari always seems to. I think the one thing that has definitely become clear in the last 5 years is that Ferrari has very serious institutional problems. Fucking MFD.
I could see exactly. I can hear what you were doing as well. Quick, mix 4. Yeah, no, they do have real issues, and I think we're now starting to see the brunt of that.
Oh, shit. Alright, I'm going to back off now. Save my battery for the next lap.
Row 5 for the TRs. I think we're seeing the Ferrari issue come through now on we've seen Vettel fall apart under the pressure of it all and the frustration of it, and if the cars aren't to his liking and whatever, but you've got to wonder what the toll is of having to deal with the Tifosi, the Italian media, and all of that stuff in the meantime. I think we're also starting to see crack on Charles Leclerc as well, because he keeps binning it at awkward scenarios, and he's at the risk of starting to have Ferrari go, you've pulled the trigger too soon, get Kimi back, blah 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 blah, because a couple of awkward crashes, he's harsh on himself, almost like Norris light, I guess. And that's great, and that because it gives him character and it shows what his emotions and his personality is and all of that kind of stuff. But it's that kind of weakness that the media and inside Ferrari will sit and nitpick away on, and they just need to have a couple of people in Ferrari to put their arm around them and just go, do you know what, shit happens sometimes, but we'll bounce back and we'll get through it. Instead, they missile the drivers out into the public world, and it's almost like it's their job to do it, but then no one looks after them, and they're busy putting their arm around the team. It feels really arse about face.
Yeah, it does. I'm thinking, actually, the big teams have gotten really bad, actually, at dealing with young talent, but they seem so hungry for it.
Yeah.
Because, Red Bull, whatever they're doing with Pierre Gasly, and how much of it is Pierre Gasly's fault, we can debate all day, but they're certainly not handling it the best. I don't think not saying much publicly is really dealing with the issue. It's certainly not giving him the support he clearly needs. They didn't do a great job handling Verstappen the year before last, when he was having that just absolutely inexcusable season. Ferrari are doing a really bad job with Leclerc, and they've damaged plenty of other drivers in their relentless quest to make F1 the most boring sport on the planet. Ferrari didn't really know what to do with Esteban Ocon, so they didn't do anything with him. McLaren messed up Stoffel Van Dorn, but seem to have learned lessons from it at least. Because I don't know if this is an accurate representation, but I'm feeling a bit less of a corporate McLaren these days and a bit more of a human McLaren.
Yes.
Where people work.
Yeah.
People with families.
Boom.
There we go.
Just the 1.3 seconds clear.
1.3 second. Fuck yes. That's good, because that's all I've got to give. I can't do another lap. I have to come in and... Oh, that scares me though. That we've made the game way too easy. I thought, turning the difficulty up. I thought, bit of a spicy challenge, but apparently we're in very good positions so far. Maybe
it's just an Aussie anomaly, but
also Toro Rosso. Now I'm thinking about it. Toro Rosso's driver situation is a fascinating one as well, because Daniel Kvyat is the Daniel Kvyat who earned a seat at Red Bull on merit, and then Alexander Albon is knocking my socks off.
Yes.
He's hardly Mr. Charisma, but
I think he's quite funny in his own he's exactly who you'd want to bring home to mum.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I get that,
but he's probably got a gimp mask and a sling somewhere.
Well, you would hope. You've got to have some spice. But, I don't think even Red Bull expected him to be delivering like this when they brought him in. I honestly felt he was there to make up the numbers.
Yeah, I agree. And to be fair, so he done very, very well in Formula 2, but it was very much Russell and Norris, and then Albon behind, snapping at the heels. So I expected that kind of performance parity to kind of bleed across into Formula 1 as well. But I'd say all three have done superbly well, and as three of the best highlights of the season just as a whole. I think what's really, really interesting around Toro Rosso is I can't see where else they're going to pilfer drivers from to replace either of them. So I say that they're both there for 2020. Depending on what they jettison out with Gasly, because all they've done throughout the last 12 months or so is jettison drivers out from their young driver program. Tictum's gone because he was doing pretty woefully in Super Formula, thank God. Nico Kari came back and has gone again, and he's actually left Formula 2 last year and went down to Formula 3 to try and win it, to try and go, I'm not shit really. I can't think of anyone else that they've got coming through the ranks necessarily either now. Elsewhere.
No. But the rumour I'm hearing, and again, it's a episode full of rumours.
Whisper me.
So the word on the street amongst the cool kids behind the bike sheds is that Honda are quite keen to get Jenson Button's teammate from Super GT into the car.
I read
because
this.
he actually, he's already pre-qualified for a super license, and he's a bit old. He's like what 29, 30. But Jensen's a big advocate and says he should be in Formula One. It's just he's never expressed any interest in racing outside Japan. So he's not driven any of the circuits. But apparently Honda want him in, and they see him as a great option because he's already qualified for a super license. And that would mean if they want to ditch Gasly onto the scrap heap and take someone out of Toro Rosso, then there's the seat there for this Japanese upstart to come in and step in. And I feel really bad I don't know his name. I think it's like oh god, I don't want to do a racism accidentally.
I want to say Tsunoda, but I don't think it is.
No, it's... Oh, here we go. Yamamoto. Naoki Yamamoto.
Okay. Not related to Sakon.
No.
I remember.
One would hope not. Yeah, Naoki Yamamoto. That's good. I feel glad that I looked that up now. I didn't call him Ching Chong King Tong.
Hoping tell. There'd be that'd be interesting because I am missing us not having a Japanese driver on the grid. I feel like we need to have one.
And with Honda doing so well as well.
And an Italian. Yeah, that does make sense because Matsushita in Formula 2 is good, but he's not going to be the top tier. Kobayashi's Toyota, so he won't be coming across. There's nowhere else really to... They can't get Nakajima in because he's off doing Super Formula and not necessarily rolling himself in glory with it. Yeah.
Super Formula! Sorry, I had to do it. Make sure it was pronounced correctly. I am one-stopping and I am stretching out my softs way longer than I should, I think.
See, yeah, I want a one-stop, but it's telling me there's only 4 seconds between that and a two-stop because it wants to stick me on mediums.
Yeah, it's trying to stick me on mediums as well, but it says apparently I can make it softs to mediums and get to the end of the Grand Prix. My tyres will just be very worn on each one. Do you know what? I might actually custom strategy and see if I can do a medium, soft, and see what the time delta looks like on that. Right, and then no, 6.897 seconds slower, apparently. But I would feel way more comfortable than trying to one-stop it. It's just a really big gap.
I don't know. I'm gonna start off as a oneer and see how I go in.
Yeah, I might do the same. And if I have to stop at the end, then fuck it, I have to stop at the end. Alrighty, sir. I've turned off formation lap.
Oh, you start.
Yeah, because it was annoying both of us. I sensed. So
yeah,
how about we get through the first lap shenanigans, and then we can get on to the rest of our topics because we've got quite a lot still to come.
We have actually.
Crappy start, as I always have.
It's not too bad for once.
But I come out in the lead, so there's that.
Noish. I've got round Gasly.
Who hasn't?
That's going to be our seasonal meme. I can tell.
Yeah, well, we've done Grosjean, so it's time we find a new victim.
Have you seen actually on the F1 Voice website at their latest poll? Oh, Norris, that was me. To be fair, I'm facing the wrong way. I've got to let everyone go. Right, it's all right. Burn from the back. The F1 Voice website was saying, who do you think? Do you think anyone will be replaced this season? And if so, who will be the first? And Gasly's got the highest votes. Then it's Kubica, interestingly. So the love-hate, like a no middle ground, continues.
Yeah.
Then there was a few votes for Giovinazzi, a few for Bottas, then Hamilton. I'm assuming they were just meme voice. And then like about 20% of people were like, there won't be any changes whatsoever, which I kind of subscribe to. But I don't
think there'll be any mid-season changes. I think it'd be too late in the year.
Yeah,
really, I think you have to stick with what you've got right now and let the cards fall as they might.
Yeah. Get back on with it.
I'm just trying to get out of Durr's range of Hamilton, and then I'll be a happy hombre.
Boop boop. Randomly, just whilst we're thinking, and I can talk about this without having to actually think it. If anyone ever listens to the Beyond the Grid podcasts, or if you've never listened to one before, please, 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 I implore everyone to go and listen to Alex Wirtz's episode of Beyond the Grid, because he has led a massively fascinating life. He talks about how fucking crazy Flavio Briatore is in the 90s, and how when he was offered the drive at Benetton to replace Gerhard Berger, he was invited to Briatore's London house, where he proceeded to offer him his drive in a dressing gown that kept flopping open.
That sounds about right.
It's like the best anecdote I've ever heard.
Like if he'd said he'd done it in a kimono, I'd be like, yeah, I can see that. Do you know what's really weird? Like, we're going into celebrity culture twice in one episode, but if you look at pictures of old Flavio Briatore, he was quite a good-looking man, and then something happened in the 90s, and he just became this fat, balding, grey weirdo.
As so many Italians end up doing.
And yet he still managed to date Naomi Campbell.
Yeah.
And Heidi Klum.
Heidi Klum. I've got no idea how either of those happened. But well, I do.
Yeah, he was spectacularly wealthy.
Several 100 million of them.
Yeah. I don't know. I do miss the Benetton family's involvement in Formula One.
Yes, I do indeed.
There's been a lot of talk lately. Autosport ran a piece on it as well about Renault's 1 billion F1 gamble not paying off, saying that. Well, pointing out the same things that you and I have always said, which is that they've always been able to do it. You know, buy a team and then within 5 years challenge for the championship. But they pointed out that actually Renault's ability to do that was compromised way before now, because actually the move to the hybrid era is where they already fell behind. And that's because as they were moving out of Formula One, Flavio Briatore had actually fired a lot of people at the engine facility in Vichy, and they've never gotten over that loss of talent. It was quite an interesting piece, actually.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
So, like, a lot of the expertise that went into like their genuinely awesome championship-winning engines of the 90s went either to Mechachrome or went into the Ferrari and Mercedes programs.
Yeah, because the whole Mechachrome thing was proper confusing at the time, I remember. because I didn't quite understand who was who in Sydney Zoo.
No.
Which was bizarre. Sorry, I was in a bizarre four-way and four-wide battle there just for a second. It's very confusing. Just to finish up on my Vertibles, he then actually, so Verts now does circuit design. And
good lad.
And his dad is the man that bought and redesigned the A1 wing. And I was like, how bizarre is like the world where his dad has nothing to do with motor racing at all. He's just an engineer, but he basically was one of the people that redesigned the Österreichs ring into the A1 ring, which then is now the Red Bull ring, obviously, for those of you who aren't ancient like us two, in our 30s. And
yeah.
lol. But what he does now is go around and redesign circuits, but thinks of it not from necessarily from a commercial perspective, but much more from a racing and logistics perspective, because he's also like got an engineering background himself, because he followed his dad's footsteps and stuff like that. Absolutely fascinating. So yeah, if you're interested in circuit design and how he goes about doing stuff, he's not got anything necessarily in the pipeline that's going to be coming to Formula One, because he deals with much more smaller tracks. But it was interesting that he was going into why Tilkdrome circuits, we've got a bit bored and sick of them and that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was fascinating. Go check it out.
I'm a big fan of Alex Wurz. I loved him as a driver. He was very exciting when he came into Benetton, but also he's hilarious.
Yes, that's true. And he was funny because he was in this podcast, because he was saying essentially McLaren offered him a race drive, and then they signed Kimi, but they didn't tell him for 2002.
We've got a quick question coming in. F1 Legend asks what season we're in. That's a multifaceted question, my friend. This is the first round of our 2019 season, so we're not actually playing career mode or whatever. We're just out driving the car quite nicely. But this is the 10th season of the Failcast F1 podcast. So we've been doing this since F1 2010, but we did the double season 1 year, so it's a bit weird. Anyway, sorry, please carry on, mate.
Oh yeah, no problems, and welcome. Thank you for watching F1 Legends. So there was loads and loads of good juicy behind the scenes stuff for anyone that was looking for, because remember when Panis went to be the McLaren test driver and then came back with BAR the following year? He essentially went off to go and do a Panis, but done so well with the driving of stuff that they was like, oh well, with Mika going, you can have his seat. But then they went and signed Kimi, but basically put Wurz in a contract clause that meant that he was never able to leave, and he kept on getting offered race seats for year after year from other teams, and Ron Dennis would refuse to let him go. So he was like being proper bitchy and bitter about Ron Dennis throughout this entire podcast, and that was why. That
sounds very typically Ron Dennis, to be honest.
It does, and that's why there is such a massive gap, and it looks really weird, but essentially that's why there's a massive gap between like him having the 2000 and 2000. No, it's just the 2000 season with Benetton. There goes a couple of sub races for McLaren. And then him coming back for Williams in 2007. He was getting drop offers all the way through, but he was never allowed to leave. I just thought that was bizarre, but very wrong.
That's old corporate McLaren for you, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and the reason why that popped into my head was with you saying earlier around how McLaren have changed their culture and it's much more about people and stuff like that. And I think with no more Ron there, that is one of the good things that's now let them be able to breathe and get on with their stuff.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think McLaren have learnt some important lessons from this kind of time in the wilderness. I am locked in a battle with Hamilton, and he's way faster than me down the straights, and I'm somehow... I think he's got me this time, though. Yeah, he forced me wide, the cheeky monkey. Oh, that squeaky bum time, but I got him.
Hey.
I got by him again.
I have just passed Gasly for 10th.
Oh, you're having a nice recovery drive down there.
Indeed.
I was a little worried when you span.
Been some good, actually. I have to say the AI have been pretty decent so far.
Yeah, they seem aggressive, but like they're not deliberately colliding with you. So I didn't see that in the patch notes, but if they've done that, that's cracking. I actually enjoyed that the racing I'm having with Hamilton so far. It's clean-ish. I mean, I did have to accept he'd push me off the track, but I was able to get by him, although he did move to defend the line I was taking, so the AI is definitely improved.
What do you think of, and apologies, this is a complete jump for topics that we haven't even said that we'd be covering, but what do you think of this whole pushing drivers off the track to keep your position or to overtake that seems to have come to the fore over the last few races? Basically, since Verstappen's win in Austria, and then Leclerc going, well, that's how this is going to be, then that's how I'm going to play. And now everyone just seems to be pushing everyone off.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest. It's spicy, don't get me wrong. Like it makes for enjoyable racing to watch in the moment.
Yeah.
But once you blur the lines like that, then it doesn't make penalties feel any less arbitrary. Because why is one kind of crossing the track limits fine, but another isn't? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you're going to have rules, then have rules and enforce them properly. It kind of feels like that, you know. Yeah. That said, if I'd been on the stewards at that event, I wouldn't have penalised Verstappen because I would have been murdered by all the Verstappen fans, and they would have returned to their families with bits of my flayed skin.
Agreed.
So, yeah, I probably wouldn't have taken that route. That said, I kind of expected... I wouldn't have been surprised, let's put it that way, if he had got a penalty, because, as we talked about a few weeks back, Rosberg got penalised for the exact same move in the exact same place a few years ago.
That is true. Are you pitting, by the way?
No.
Okay.
So if there was any consistency to this at all, then he would have been penalised. I should pit soon though, because my tyres are a rather fetching shade of orange.
5-second penalty speed in the pit lane by 1 mile an hour.
No.
This is going to be one of those races, I can tell.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It can't be as bad as last year. Do you remember last year where you got a penalty for speeding in the pit lane while entering the pit lane to serve a penalty for speeding in the pit lane?
Sounds about right.
Failcast. What I'm enjoying particularly this season is that the midfield is almost impossible to predict.
Absolutely.
Because I still can't tell you. Like, if you ask me how a Racing Point doing this year, I've got no fucking idea.
Very, very true. Very, very true. And it reminds me of when tyre manufacturers used to mix up the grid a little bit, but this time we've not had to go from that. It's just literally who's got it right on one track to the other each round, and I'm loving it lots. I don't like these.
Bit slow on that lap because I thought I was pitting, but apparently I'm not. Hope my tyres last. Verstappen is catching me, but he will have fresher tyres than me, I suspect. I'm guessing Hamilton will have successfully undercut me given how close we were, and that he's now running potentially in clean air. I'm pleased that the game seems to be, touch wood, running more stably as well.
Yeah. Oh, I don't like these medium tyres. They're really crummy. I don't feel fast. I don't know if I am or not.
Shut up, Jeff. You're speeding. Do you know, it's like 1,000,000 degrees in here now, and I am so sweaty and gross and hot that it's impossible to think, and I'm trying to like focus my mind so I can be fast and talk, but now I'm in the pits so I can actually say stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's not just the drivers that are all getting messed up, right? It's the teams as well. It's just so difficult to know what's going on. Oh, double boxing for Ferrari behind me.
Oh, juice. Yeah, because one of the mysteries of this season for me basically is what is Antonio Giovinazzi, and I can't decide because it looks like on paper he's got speed and pace. And
what is he? Sorry, that just tickled me.
Because it's just purely because I can't decide if he's fast, if he's slow, if he just can't do a race distance. Is it the strategy that's wrong all the time? It just seems so all over the shop at all times. All Vettel and Stroll have just smacked into each other coming out the pits.
Yay. Incidentally, you were worried if you were fast or not. You just set the fastest lap, so you're fast.
Ah, cool.
Your race leader on lap 12 of 29 is Lando Norris.
Amazing.
Yeah, good job. Good job indeed. And I wasn't beaten by Hamilton. He's behind me.
Nice.
He's slightly further behind me than he was, which no one is more shocked about than me, because he was so fast and I was struggling to keep him behind.
You cunt. Sorry. Oh, sorry. He just braked in the middle of the straight. And that smacked up my wing.
They're still doing weird stuff like that. That was a problem a few years ago.
It felt very unusual, is all I will say, because we weren't even close. I'm going to have to pit.
I was going to say, how bad is the damage?
It's going to be pitable.
Still, you should be able to switch to the yellow wall tyres.
That's what I was just thinking. I'm going to need to go round another lap, but lose a second or so.
They actually feel okay. I'm not hating them. Hamilton's no longer a threat because he's on the hard tyres. It's Verstappen I'm keeping my BDI on.
Nice.
Because he's in third and he's on mediums as well. We pitted on the same lap, so we're on an identical strategy, he and I. I guess Hamilton took too much out of his softs in quali.
Okay.
I'm lapping faster as well by like a tenth a sector. So
mediums. Sorry. I couldn't get it on the MFD to work to do it, so I just panicked. Cheers, Jeff.
I saw a great interview with Lucas de Grassi, actually, because he seems to be like the spokesperson for all electric motorsports now. And he's someone else who's like incredibly knowledgeable about tracks and cars and whatnot. Yes. He's a fascinating character. And two-time champion in Formula E, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, one of the questions that came up was someone was asking, will there be a Formula E video game like there is for Formula 1?
Ooh.
And he implied that there probably will be. So that'll be exciting.
Yes, please.
I'm not sure when or on what platform, but I mean, the ghost racing they've got now is an innovative idea, but no. I want a single-player game, please.
Yeah. Indeed.
I mean, the ghost racing is an interesting idea, right? You know about that.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is you can race in the live race, as if you were on the track, and it figures out where you would be.
Yep. Which sounds good, because I've watched a couple of the videos of it on the Formula. Oh, sirens! Hello. But it doesn't interest me, because to me that's just like glorified time trial.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm not a huge fan of it either. I think it's an innovative concept.
Yeah.
I want a career mode.
Yeah, it's coasting on the fact that you're doing it up against the real people.
I've set the fastest lap now.
I am now dead
which
last.
is encouraging, and Hamilton is dropping back. Let me get a race update from Jefferoo. Full race update. You look after your tyres. So bossy. Yeah, so we wanted to talk about Honda, because they also have had a very positive turnaround, and it seems like the Toro Rosso Red Bull relationship has been exactly the shot in the arm they needed, and it's really interesting to see how pro Honda Red Bull are. And incidentally, I don't know if you saw this, but Lewis Hamilton said that he's 100% convinced that the Honda has more power in certain conditions than the Mercedes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said like in certain temperature ranges, it seems to be putting out more power, is his analysis.
Very
which doesn't surprise me, actually, because Honda have always delivered, like, whenever they've been in the sport, they've always had the most powerful engine. It's not always been the one that wins the most races, but they can bring the horsepower. They know what they're doing there.
That's true, actually, because even when you think back to when it was a Mugen Honda, they were the best, like, in terms of actual pure horsepower then. Do you remember Jordan bringing out the qualifying engines and all of that stuff?
Yeah, exactly. They were the last engine manufacturer to provide a quality-specific engine as well. Like a fucking balls-to-the-wall, insanometer braking kind of power. It was a delight. I was always excited in those qualifying sessions by the Jordans.
Just to see whether or not they'd explode. Just out of the sheer power of them all. But I think that partnership is down to the fact that they've worked together, but they've allowed Honda to kind of do what they wanted and should do, if that makes sense, rather than being constrained into a box that someone like McLaren provided them.
We are trading fastest laps. No, completely agree. I mean, it clearly shows that Honda's initial problems were down to that old, rigid corporate structure at McLaren that we were, just saying. It seems to have turned a corner and started to move over. Because, they were told very strictly the dimensions with which they had to create that power unit, and clearly it wasn't providing enough cooling or airflow, or it was causing just problems front to back, right? Because it was already leaked to the press while the cooperation with McLaren was still going, that Honda have said, well, we can make all the reliability problems go away if you allow us to extend the length of the engine by, I think it was like 5 inches, and McLaren just flat out said no. So it's like, well, fine, then the engine will keep braking.
Yeah.
I think it's been very interesting to see, actually, how, we went through that stage in the 2000s where the old giants of Formula One crumbled, and the old structure of having a team principal in charge of everything was gradually replaced by a more democratic and diffuse management structure. Oh, hello, Beetlejuice. How are you doing, mate? Kevin Magnussen is out of the race.
Ooh, safety car, please.
No, not safety car, please.
I've just
I'm
passed him.
like seconds clear of Hamilton.
He's down at turn 3.
I'm good, mate. I'm just very tired and incredibly hot. It's boiling in here. I may dehydrate into sort of a beef jerky kind of arrangement before the end of this episode. But all in all, we're doing good. Simon and I have been trading fastest laps, and the only reason we're not 1-2 right now is because Simon had a bit of bad luck in quali and a bit of bad luck with Sebastian Vettel deciding to brake check him.
Perez out as well.
Someone's come off ahead of you, Jeff. God, he's always on me. Yeah, what I was going to say, you saw that the old ways of doing things and the old golden tickets, like the designers that were the big names in the 80s and 90s suddenly couldn't cut it at the same level in the 2000s, and certainly not the 2010s. Like Pat Simmons didn't exactly cover himself with glory on his return, for example, although I still got massive respect for him.
Yes.
And it was interesting to see like the same thing happen with Alonso. That rumours have been flying as well. I know we should have included this in our silly season talk before, but rumours have been flying that he's been talking to teams as well about coming back to Formula One, but no one seems to be interested. And I found that actually quite unsurprising because he kind of seems to carry bad luck around with him recently, and although he's possibly the greatest driver of his generation, I think he is a relic of the past.
I think he's too old to be a long-term investment, and he's also burnt too many bridges.
Because, the exception to this rule seems to be Kimi Räikkönen, who seems to be hungrier than ever. But in general, I don't see what would be in it for anyone to bring Alonso back. He's not even as marketable as he used to be.
No.
Somehow. I don't know how that happened. That must have just happened overnight one day, but IndyCar's not quite so keen to fillet him publicly anymore.
Especially now that, was it yesterday or today, McLaren announced that they're now going into IndyCar full-time.
Yeah, then again, I'm saying all this, but if they announced that Alonso was going to be their IndyCar driver, it would be zero surprise. But I don't see it. I somehow don't see it. I kind of think that they're going to go with other drivers. I don't know who. I'm surprised to see, though, that they were talking recently about actually maybe rushing to IndyCar was a bad idea, and they basically quietly pulled the plug on it, and then they completely do a 180 after their F1 team delivers some encouraging results. And it kind of feels very short-sighted to me, like you're only just turning the corner in F1. It's very arrogant and complacent to go, yeah, we can run another campaign successfully somewhere else. Like, fix the F1 team.
Yeah, it does make me worry that there's too many fingers in the pies, because I'd want to see McLaren not be best of the rest. They now need to be looking at consolidating for the rest of this year to then start chopping down that gap next year. And I just think we've seen it with them before. Too many eyes, too many projects, too many plates. It just all falls apart, and I do worry. They need to be completely separate entities, essentially, and have no crossover whatsoever. And if they do it like that, then great, that's fine. But I'm just worried.
They won't.
Yeah, I'm worried because I don't think they will.
No. And it worries me too, because things seem to be going a lot better at McLaren. There seem to be a lot more positivity inside the team. I know Will Buxton was saying that the atmosphere in there is just so vastly improved. And also, they've been having barbecues, and I'm following them on LinkedIn, and they've been putting on special events for their staff and trying to get morale up, and it seems to be working. And I sort of thought, great, you've turned a corner and your car sales are doing okay and your Formula One team's getting in the right direction. You seem to have the ideal driver pairing for where you're at right now, and one that could take you forward. Why start spending money elsewhere. I mean, I'm still a bit concerned that they're a Renault customer. That bothers me a little bit. I mean, it doesn't seem to be holding back their recovery this year, but
I think it will stop them in the next step, though.
yeah, that's what I'm alluding to. And they've burnt the bridges with Honda, which seems to be, if you want an up-and-coming engine that might start, 2021, being the one to watch in the new formula, it would probably be that one. If I had to take an outside bet, I'd take them over Renault any day. And I actually said that at the time they dropped Honda.
Yeah.
I said it was stupid to drop them. Because, Ferrari seemed to be absolutely determined to go backwards. So you're kind of left with Mercedes and Honda. And given that Mercedes seem to think Honda have found power in places they haven't, and the fact that no period of hegemonic dominance in F1 ever lasts, I'd put money on Honda to do well. Aston Martin don't seem to be interested in entering anymore because they said they were prepared to step up and produce engines for Formula 1 if Honda pulled out. But now Honda have turned the corner, I don't think that they will. So
nope.
Unless, some other third party can be attracted in, and that really doesn't seem to be the case because everyone who was talking to them has stopped. Cosworth are no longer interested. Porsche have entered Formula E instead. I'm really not sure where McLaren would turn to. I mean, certainly it would be suicidal to start producing their own engines, I think.
Yeah, way too...
I mean, that's what killed Arrows.
Way too soon. Too much of an overhead. I don't know quite what their factory, in terms of what they did, thinking back to old Mercedes days is what I'm thinking of, is when they used to do dynos and stuff in-house. I don't know what they've got there to kind of recover with, if that's even compatible with today's setup. I would rather they didn't, if possible. But you're right, I don't know who else would come in. Similarly, I don't think anyone else would come in unless one manufacturer drops out or the grid gets bigger.
Yeah, true. Beetlejuice was asking what's Ilmor up to these days. Ilmor have become Mercedes-Benz high-performance engines. So Ilmor were actually producing the Mercedes-Benz engines at the start of the hybrid era, and then Mercedes took them over and rebranded them. So unfortunately, they're not there, and Brian Hart is dead, God rest his soul. And Pure was just a pipe dream of Craig Pollock's fevered imagination. Peugeot sold their F1 infrastructure to Asia Tech, and then that got dismantled.
Yeah. I wouldn't see Toyota coming back.
Oh, you have a gripe with me? Go on, lay it on me.
Uh-oh. Multi-beta juice.
How could you pass up on signing Rubens Barrichello for your Grand Prix World Sauber career? That actually is quite a good question. I'll be honest with you, I've always had a bit of a blind spot for Rubens Barrichello, both in real life and in video games, and I don't know why, because his time at Jordan and his time at Stewart, I thought actually he was sensational, but even at the time I kind of found him boring. And sort of, he's just not on my radar. But he may be someone who I boomerang back to, like usually him or Frentzen. If I start paying for drivers, that's the way I may well go. I wanted to get 2 pay drivers on board while I restructured the team. But yeah, my apologies if I have upset you in any way with that. I understand your concern. I'm thinking now, I'm racking my brains about who else could really step into Formula 1, but there's literally no one unless Ford had an uncharacteristic change of heart.
Lamborghini? I'm pulling at random manufacturers in my head now.
Well, they're part of Audi VW now, aren't they? And they're committed to Formula. They're committed to Formula E. So I'd say you're correct, Beetlejuice. You probably would have made perfect sense, but yeah, I'm just a bit blind to him. You're probably right. I've just got so used to signing pay drivers that I never got my teeth into anyone a bit more meaty. Yeah, I mean, really, out of terms of the big auto manufacturers, I mean, Toyota are long gone.
Yep.
Nissan committed to Formula E, and Renault are already in Formula One. So that's one sort of conglomerate that's in both. Mercedes are in both now. Yeah, you're not really left with a lot of option, are you? Hashtag bring back Subaru. Hashtag colony Subaru. That's why I'm watching the 1990 season again, by the way. It was primarily out of fascination about the time Subaru was in Formula One. With a boxer engine. Which I know is kind of their speciality, but like the vibrations that come off those things in those days, like it was just insane. Rolls-Royce to modify their jet engines for F1. Why not? I'd watch that. I'm waiting for the day that Wipeout becomes a real sport.
Oh,
that's what I'm looking forward to. But now you mentioned Rolls-Royce, or Bentley are part of the VW group, but I was going to say, my brother, when I was a kid, he was a huge Bentley fan, which is really odd because we were properly northern and working class, and if he bought a Bentley, people would have just written him off as some kind of weirdo. But he really had a love for the idea of a Bentley engine Formula One car.
Oh, right.
Which sounded left field even then, but now I'm talking about it, it just sounds insane, doesn't it?
I could see them doing like the parade car. That's about it.
But also, there was, about 2 years ago, talk of Ferrari bringing in the Maserati brand.
Yes.
But you couldn't have McLaren Maserati. That would not make any sense because, they're direct competitors.
Mm-hmm. I'd also say that because Alfa Romeo's in there, there's that kind of... Would it have ever been one or the other, I wonder?
It was supposed to be both.
Oh.
Alfa Romeo for Sauber and Maserati for Haas. But interestingly, and I'm going to address what Beetlejuice has just said in a moment, interestingly though, Alfa Romeo have had their worst sales year ever, I believe. They've been outsold by their stablemate Lancia, and if you're wondering to yourself, I haven't seen a Lancia in years, that's because Lancia only makes one car and only sells it in Italy. And that has managed to outsell Alfa Romeo.
Bloody hell.
So my worry now is how long will they keep Alfa Romeo in Formula One if it's clearly not helping. Beetlejuice points out it would be good if the biggest chance would be if Liberty could strike a deal with one of the American teams. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I'd hate to see Chevrolet or Dodge or Chrysler or something, but Ford I would welcome back with open arms, and all these livery designers on Twitter have been doing like Ford concept liveries that look amazing. But Ford just seem to have absolutely zero interest I think in that's historic in general, actually.
Actually, that's true. It does go wider than Formula One, but I think that's historic because they were always the most expensive but least developed old engines off the shelf to power the back of the grid teams, and then they got shit for it because someone has to power whoever's in last, and it was always them.
Haas Buick, I like that. Sorry, go on, Simon.
Land Rover. Skoda. I'd love a Skoda on the grid, or a Lada.
Well, Lada were in F1 for a little bit, weren't they?
Yeah,
sponsoring Vitaly Petrov.
Yeah, that's true.
Used to have Lada logos on the Lotus cars. Actually, there's something. Lotus. Lotus have just announced the first British-made all-electric hypercar, and they seem to be going through a bit of a renaissance. But I guess they don't have the money. But still, I'd love to see a Lotus engine come in, but yeah, clearly that won't happen, given that they've skipped hybrids altogether and gone straight to all-electric. No, I mean, like, is Lotus still British? Good question. It's owned by Proton, the Malaysian company, but it is still headquartered and all their cars are still built in Norfolk. So it's still technically a British product, it's just owned by a large Malaysian company.
I wonder if with IndyCar going hybrid from 2021, if that opens up opportunities for more cross collaboration of engine manufacturers and stuff.
I did not know that was happening. Alright, you just put a conspiracy theory in my head. Tinfoil hats on, everybody.
Oh, I've gone
McLaren entering IndyCar because they're going to produce their own engine that's viable in both.
That would not surprise me.
Beetlejuice says the British car industry, that's been a meme since before I was born. Yeah, me too. Rover were still kind of putting out some good products when I was a small kid, but
we used to have a Rover.
But yeah, well, Vauxhall's part of GM, so it's not really British anymore, is it? What British car manufacturers do really well is like small.
Go under.
Small, yeah, well, they go bankrupt really well, but small production hand-built sports cars. Because I mean, TVR went way longer than it had any right to, and it only went under because they tried to grow too fast. But if you look at Morgan, Bristol, Ginetta actually are doing really well for themselves.
Yeah, they still do Ginettas as an actual racing formula, don't they? Still.
Yeah, actually, what's the name of that one in Yorkshire? Begins with an M. They build supercars. Oh god, it's going to drive me absolutely mad now. But yeah, like you can still buy British cars. It's just none of them are mass market.
I've only just looked at my chat. Manners popped in the chat for me. What about BMW? Or is it just that they're Formula E bound?
They've committed to Formula E. I've taken my wing off on the last lap, 2 corners from the end. Maximum fail.
Are you gonna?
If you want a really great British roadster, go to Wiesmann in Germany. Yeah, you're right. The Wiesmann cars actually are beautiful things, aren't they? I suppose we've still got Jaguar Land Rover. I mean, it's owned by an Indian company, but they do still manufacture their stuff in Britain.
We did,
and the new Jags are actually all right. Thank you, sir. Yeah, pole and the win. That's never happened before.
Whoop whoop.
That's the sound of the police, who are normally outside my house when we're recording these things. I finished 7.299 seconds clear of Lewis Hamilton.
Nice.
Max Verstappen takes third. Charles Leclerc is 9.2 seconds behind him. God, they've been really on the nose with this performance patch, haven't they? Because Bottas is a further 6.6 seconds behind, and then Vettel is 22.5 seconds behind Bottas. Norris in 7th, Raikkonen in 8th, Ricciardo 9th, Carlos Sainz 10th, and you take 11th, just outside the points.
Annoyingly dropped it with 2 to go and exit in turn 1. I should have been 9th.
You should have been 9th.
And, well, a 3-second penalty, I think I might have been 10th.
I have to say, though, at least we finished the first round this time.
Yeah, after looking before, and we binned it.
Yeah. Because last year we had like 2 double DNFs in the first 2 rounds, and then we didn't have a double finish until round 8 or round 9.
Indeed. Cheers, Bernard. I appreciate the pep talk. I have to get you in as my race director. Definitely Zero's got Beetlejuice, so I'll have Manor. Between us,
Yeah, why
we'll all
not?
have a takeaway.
So, we finally managed to start season 10.
Hey.
Well done, us. You got a 3-second penalty. That was your speeding in the pit lane, right?
No, I got... there was a couple of moves that I went for, and I decided to not smash my wing and cut the corner. And then I cut the corner at the chicane and got a free 3-second penalty. So, no. But I did serve my 5 seconds in the pit for my speeding.
Williams continued to be overpowered. This was a complaint going into the game because George Russell, in my career mode, is still qualifying in Q3. But Russell and Kubica have beaten Hulkenberg and Pierre Gasly, hilariously, and Lance Stroll.
Hulkenberg and Stroll smacked into each other, so I think they were damaged. But
all right.
But yeah, they were not great, and Gasly was the only one that went for a 2-stopper along with me. Lol. Idiot.
Beatrice points out, at least Gasly is accurate. Indeed. Well, thank you to everyone who's popped by for a wee chat.
Yes,
we will be
pleasure.
back in 2 weeks' time. In the interim, obviously, I am back on the YouTubes with Grand Prix World. There'll be an episode or two this weekend. Also, I'm playing through the Banner Saga, and that will be back at some point this weekend, probably, because I've been dying to play that for ages.
That will appease your Nordic selecting.
It will, exactly. The Norwegians are still my biggest subscriber group. God love them. What's going on for you, sir?
My channel's slightly quieter than normal just because I'm busy dealing with other projects, but I've got a couple of random reviews coming out over the next few days. But yeah, nothing too dramatic or exciting.
Oh well, watch you anyway. Everyone should watch you anyway. I should stream Grand Prix World because I obviously need assistance. Oh, burn! Get me to the Burns ward. I can't stream it because it's on a really old computer that can't handle it. But I'm looking at investing in a capture card, so I could actually stream it. I could maybe one day. Anyway, thank you everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. I will certainly speak to some of you in the next few hours. Bye, please.
Bye.